like to say I've enjoyed what I've been able to see and hear and feel during this service. I'd ask you to pray for me as we approach the word of the Lord. I'd like to invite your attention to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 4. I'll begin reading in verse 1. Now therefore hearken, O Israel, unto the statutes and unto the judgments which I teach you, for to do them, that ye may live and go in and possess the land which the Lord God of your fathers giveth you. Ye shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall ye diminish aught from it, that ye may keep the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you. Your eyes have seen what the Lord did because of Baal Peor, for all the men that followed Baal Peor, the Lord thy God hath destroyed them from among you. But ye that did cleave unto the Lord your God are alive, every one of you this day. Behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord my God commanded me, that ye should do so in the land whither ye go to possess it. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what nation is there so great, who hath God so nigh unto them, as the Lord our God is in all things that we call upon him for? And what nation is there so great, that hath statutes and judgments so righteous, as all this law, which I set before you this day? Only take heed to thyself, and keep thy soul diligently, lest thou forget the things which thine eyes have seen, and lest they depart from thy heart all the days of thy life. But teach them thy sons and thy sons' sons, especially the day that thou stoodest before the Lord thy God in Horeb, when the Lord said unto me, gather me the people together, and I will make them hear my words, that they may learn to fear me all the days that they shall live upon the earth, and that they may teach their children. The thought that I want to take up this evening, and whenever those of you are watching this tape, is fear. Is fear in the Lord. And I also want to talk a little bit about obedience, because I believe in studying the scriptures that our obedience and those in the Old Testament, their obedience and their fear and our fear go hand in hand. Because you can see we are to judge those. The only way we can judge a person righteously is by their fruits. We can't look into anybody's heart and say that they've been saved. We can only see what they manifest outwardly. We can tell whether or not somebody is obedient to God, that they fear him, or whether they're obedient to man. Because I'm afraid today our fear is in man. Amen. More than in God. We're living in a time where social media controls the majority of our lives. And we'll post a picture or a post on Facebook, on Instagram. And if we don't get a certain amount of likes, we'll question whether or not our friends even like us. Or we'll go so far as to go ahead and just take it down because we didn't get enough likes. Our fear is in man and not in God. In Proverbs in chapter 29 and verse 25, it says, "The fear of man bringeth a snare, but whoso putteth his trust in the Lord shall be safe." That word snare there means a trap. If we put our fear in man and trap ourselves and bind ourselves to them to where we are consumed with their opinion of us, how is our service to God in that situation? My estimation is that it wouldn't be very good. The Bible tells me that fear is the beginning of wisdom. A good understanding have all they that do his commandments. His praise endureth forever. That's Psalms 111 and verse 10. I can read about a king over there in 1 Samuel that had trouble with this. That had trouble with obeying the Lord. And I won't read the entire chapter, but in 1 Samuel chapter 15, we read about King Saul. And the Lord had come to Samuel and told him to tell the king to go and kill the Amalekites. And not just a certain number of them, go and kill all of them. Don't save anybody's life, even the cattle that are with them. Kill them, destroy them, annihilate them. Well, Saul goes to battle and he sees that they have good sheep, good oxen, that would be good for sacrifices. And the people that were there were telling Saul, "Why don't we save these to sacrifice to the Lord?" He obeyed them rather than God. If I can find it, we'll pick up and read a little bit. Psalms 15 in verse 20. "And Saul said unto Samuel, Yea, I have obeyed the voice of the Lord." He's trying to justify what he did. "And he gone the way, and have gone the way which the Lord sent me, and have brought Agag the king of Amalek, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. But the people took of the spoil sheep and oxen, the chief of the things which should have been utterly destroyed, to sacrifice unto the Lord thy God in Gilgal. And Samuel said, Hath the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, he hath also rejected thee from being king. And Saul said unto Samuel, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment of the Lord and thy words, because I feared the people and obeyed their voice." See, Saul found himself in a situation here. This wasn't the first time he disobeyed God. The first time he disobeyed God was when Samuel told him, I'm going to go away for 7 days, but you wait for me to come back before you sacrifice to the Lord. Well, Saul jumped the gun and went ahead and sacrificed to the Lord when he wasn't the one authorized to do that. And this being the second time he disobeyed the voice of the Lord withdrew himself from Saul as king. There are consequences for where we put our fear. The Bible tells me that we shouldn't fear man. We shouldn't fear those who could kill the body, but cannot destroy the soul. We should fear one that can destroy both body and soul in hell. You may be asking, Mitch, this has a lot to do with the Old Testament. See, they had the law. They had specific things that they had to do to be accepted by the Lord. They had sacrifices. Let me tell you this. The Bible tells me that I can find over there when David offended God and he sinned against the Lord. He said, "The Lord delighteth not in burnt offerings, but a contrite heart and a broken heart and a contrite spirit the Lord delighteth in." The Lord wanted their hearts. Before they were to sacrifice anything, their heart had to be in it. And I would go so far to say as their fear had to be realigned back to where it needed to be, towards God. Now, us in today's time, the Lord may put on us things to do. When the Lord put it on me to carry His word and preach, I didn't want to, because I was afraid of getting up in front of people. I was afraid of making a fool of myself. I was afraid of what people might say. There's fear pointed in the wrong direction. And sometimes I still find myself in that situation. And the only thing I know to do in those situations is to ask the Lord to help me. I think about Peter. When Peter was walking on water, the Lord told him to come. Peter had his eyes focused on the Lord and had his faith directed towards Jesus. He walked on water. But when Peter saw what was going on around him, the waves were boisterous, and I think these waves were pretty high. Peter started to sink because his fear got redirected to what was going on around him and not putting his faith towards Jesus. And once he cried out and asked the Lord to help him, the Lord picked him up. When we find ourselves in life when we find our fear in the world or in the things of the world and not in the Lord, and we acknowledge that, we ask the Lord to help us. We ask the Lord to redirect our fear. And fear in God is not the same kind of fear that we would fear things in the world. Fear of God is like a reverence. It's like a fear we would have to our parents. I love my parents, but growing up, if I got out of line and I didn't obey them, there was a punishment. There was a punishment, and I was afraid of that. There was fear in me, and I respected them. There's a respect that goes along with this fear in the Lord, this reverence in God. And when we get that fear back in alignment, we'll find in 1 John chapter 4 that there is a love that casteth out all fear. I'm not even going to turn there and read it. And I think it's talking about there is that fear of man, that fear of the world. Where's our fear at tonight? And I say our because myself included. Where's our fear at throughout our lives? Where's our fear when we wake up in the morning? Are we afraid to step out of line and do things that are not right in the sight of the Lord? Or are we afraid that if we follow the Lord and people see that, the people are going to look at us differently? Our fear should be in the Lord and wanting to make Him satisfied with us and present ourselves as that living sacrifice for Him. That it's not of ourselves, but He will help us. It's not us that will turn ourselves around and make ourselves miraculously have that fear in the Lord. He'll help us. He'll show us where we need to walk. He'll direct our paths. It's one of the first things as a child of God that they need to learn. We find over there in Deuteronomy that we read that fear is learned. One of the first things I believe that a child of God needs to learn is fear. Fear in the Lord. And I'm afraid we're not learning that today. It says over there in 1 Peter. 1 Peter chapter 3. And who is he that will harm you, if ye be followers of that which is good? If God be for us, who can be against us? And if we be followers of that which is good, the first thing that we are to add to our faith is virtue. Virtue means moral goodness. And if we're following those in the Lord, who do we have to be afraid of? No one. That's my message. I appreciate you hearing me. I hope it helps you, and I hope it didn't seem as scattered as it may have felt like to me. God bless you.